Hello and welcome to Big Weekend here on the Football365 show, brought to you by Paddy Power. I'm Mark Smith. I'm here as ever with Editor-in-Chief of Football365.com, Sarah Winterburn. On today's show, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about United versus Chelsea, Ole versus Lampard, two managers in quite a similar situation, I think. Talk about how Jose might bounce back from that absolutely humiliating final 8 minutes in his last match against West Ham. And we're going to be asking just what the hell are Liverpool going to do now without Virgil van Dijk? So lots to talk about, those subjects plus much, much more. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and also press the little notification bell. That means you won't miss a show going forward. That's all the admin done, I think. All that's left to say is this is Big Weekend, brought to you by Paddy Power. Right, Sarah, let's crack into it straight away. I want to start with Jackie Grealish. He's playing for Villa against Leeds United on Friday night under the lights, box office. It's perfectly set up, isn't it, for Jack Grealish this game?
Perfectly, especially now with Calvin Phillips ruled out, who would naturally be the one who's stopping Jack Grealish, I think, or certainly stopping him when he tries to come inside and do something. Without Calvin Phillips, you fancy Jack Grealish to have an absolute field day, because that Leeds defence looks very shaky. It's exactly the kind of situation that Grealish will revel in. He will very much be the best player on the pitch, which absolutely suits his personality and the way he plays football, I think. Yeah,
I think also this sort of double England snub of a week or 10 days ago. I think that's put some extra fire in his belly if there wasn't already there. Him and Barkley dovetailing beautifully. I don't know, something about this game. It's two proper clubs, isn't it? Villa, Leeds, real stalwarts of English football heritage. I can just see this being perfect for Jack Grealish, and I'm genuinely gutted this is on box office, because you want as many people as possible to see this player playing in these sorts of games, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those box office games that very few people are actually going to pay for unless they're fans of those clubs, because it's not quite got the lure of some of the other ones. But it's the kind of game that you wish you could watch on a Friday night. Definitely, you're absolutely right there. And yeah, Villa have done fantastic business, and they've got a great, winning though. After two games, you thought, well, they've played two of the worst teams in the division. See that? Then they beat Liverpool, and you think that's an anomaly. That win against Leicester was fantastic, because it showed the other side of Aston Villa. It showed something that wasn't that swashbuckling tide, but just kind of
a sensible team who can defend,
keeping in, and absolutely, and that defence looks so much better than it did as well. I think Matty Cash has been a great addition, for example.
Yes.
Now, I wish we could watch this, but I'm ready to watch the Grealish highlights on Saturday morning, I think.
Yeah, that'll do. With that in mind, I'm going to go with Jack Grealish to score any time in that game. Well, let's move on. We're going to have to talk about this, Sarah. Liverpool's defence, huge weekend for them, isn't it? I mean, a lot of talk all week since the Van Dijk injury. What are they going to do? What options are they going to exercise within that squad? They're at home to Sheffield United. Surely this is the perfect game for them to settle down into some sort of new normal in their back four, isn't it?
It's a perfect game because Sheffield United look like they're going to score about once every 3 years, don't they? Even and Chris Wilder eased Ryan Brewster in at the other weekend, and you'd think that he might bring him on, give him more minutes, if not start him at the weekend, certainly against Liverpool. He'll fancy that, won't he? And fancy trying to prove a point, as they say, rather dully on these things. But that Liverpool defence, they've got the same problem.
So by these things, do you mean shows like this?
Shows like this, yeah. Dull shows like this.
Yes, okay, good. Yes, good.
Liverpool got the same problem Man City did last season, when you kind of don't do enough business in the summer and think you'll be okay. You just got enough, it's okay. Then you lose your best defender, and then it looks like an absolutely massive mistake not to do anything in the summer, not to strengthen that central defence. They're down to down to two senior centre-halves plus Fabinho, who can play there, but you wouldn't fancy it all the time, not least because it takes something out of that midfield. Joel Matip never stays fit enough to play, anything like a full season, hasn't done in years. It does look very worrying back there, and it's telling, isn't it? Van Dijk gets that injury that probably rules him out for the season. They immediately lose their favourites tag. In seconds, they go from being odds-on favourites to win the title to being odds against, and for City to be odds, odds on to win it. That effect from one man's injury is astonishing, isn't it? And I mean, let's face it, he was there when they lost 7-2 to Aston Villa, so it's not like the problems don't exist anyway. They're just massively,
no, that's right.
He
hasn't looked imperious, has he?
Absolutely not. And he didn't look imperious at any point during Project Restart. He looked shaky, Ever since we came back and the Villa game, he was poor. So it's not like this, it's not like we've got a line that says Liverpool were astonishing defensively and then Van Dijk's getting ruled out, so Liverpool are going to be in trouble. There's a little bit of trouble there anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've gone for both teams to score in this game. I think Sheffield United, we know they don't score many goals, but I fancy them nicking something on a set piece here. Let's move on. I want to talk about Ollie versus Lampard. These two seem to be linked and connected at the hip at all points at the moment. They're in quite a similar situation, both ex-legends of the club. United had a great week in Europe, Chelsea less so, but pretty solid against Sevilla. This is probably the biggest, it's almost certainly the biggest game of the weekend. How do you see this one going?
It's definitely the biggest game of the weekend. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because those two are sort of inextricably linked through being sort of, either you think that they're a club legend who deserves time, etc., or you think that they've been over-promoted and they're only in the job because they're a club legend, or somewhere in the middle. But they are in a similar position. Obviously, Solskjaer's in a stronger position because he's doing the job longer, and that win against PSG this week, dovetailed by the win in Paris 18 months ago, mean he's got a bit more in the bank than Lampard. He
must wish he played PSG away every week.
Oh yeah, I mean, which if the FIFA would have their way, that's exactly what will happen. But Yeah, I mean, but the good thing about Chelsea this week is they kept a clean sheet. Now, that doesn't sound great, but you would rather, as a manager, you should rather draw 0-0 than draw 3-3. And certainly if you're throwing away the point, throwing away a lead to draw 3-3, as they so often seem to be doing. So that 0-0 is encouraging. And now what's going to happen in this game is who's going to take the initiative? Because we've seen from Man United, the best version of Man United is the version that doesn't take the initiative. It's a version that sits back, plays five at the back, plays two holding midfielders in front of them. That's a lot of bodies to break down. And if they play like that and Chelsea take them on, you'd fancy United, because United will break at pace, and that defence of Chelsea's will struggle against that. But it's whether Chelsea fall into that trap, isn't it? They almost don't want the ball, because if they have the ball, then United can hurt them with that kind of pace that they've got, just as they hurt PSG.
But I've seen no evidence from any Lampard side, including Derby County, when he was there, that they can play that sort of way. It seems to be they just want to take the initiative every time. So let's see if they've got a plan B. Let's move on, though. I want to talk about Fulham versus Palace. Probably the least glamorous, from the most glamorous to the least glamorous, just like that on this show. Palace looked completely toothless last time out. Fulham looked far improved last time out. So this one could be more interesting than it would suggest. It's
certainly more interesting than we thought it would have been 2 weeks ago, I think. Palace massively disappointing against Brighton. To have those players, we thought that they might be a bit different this season, and they certainly started a little bit different, a little bit more attacking talent in there. The addition of Eze, and with to take some of that pressure off Zaha, you felt like there's a bit more forward momentum in them, and yet they literally didn't have a shot.
He didn't get on last time.
Sorry,
he didn't get a minute last time. Eze didn't get on last time.
No, I think so many of these managers, and they do frustrate me rather when they kind of want to ease players in so slowly. And you think, well, if you've got such a good player who presumably is looking good on the training ground, I mean, he may know no different. He may be looking at him and thinking he's not ready. But if you've got that kind of exciting player, I don't really understand why there's this reluctance, especially when you're not exactly flying. And I think, Palace only had one shot from a penalty against Brighton. And this is a Brighton side. It's not a brilliant Brighton side by any stretch of the imagination. And that's in a derby. Now, you might argue that not having the fans there takes away that element of, that sort of derby element to it. But yeah, Fulham look better. They've invested. They look better at the back. They've got several new players in there. The signing of Ruben Loftus-Cheek is very astonishing to me that he's gone there. But I can only think it's because it's round the corner and it's local, and he couldn't be bothered to get the tube or something. But they do look better. I think they'll still go down. I think they're still doomed. But I think your derby record might be safe.
Thank God. Let's stay record breakers, shall we? Also, I think we should mention Ademola Lookman as well, who's so far looked fantastic.
He was really good against Sheffield United.
Yeah, they're definitely trending in the right direction, but I agree. I can't see them staying up. Let's move on to Arsenal versus Leicester. Arsenal lost at home to Man City. Away at Man City. Pretty narrowly last time out. But they are improving every week, I think. And against the Leicester side, who are missing a few key players, I mean, I think we're back to a home win here.
I think we are, and I think what we'd probably like to see from Arsenal at the moment is them sort of trying to go on the front foot in a game. I think with the Man City game, understandably, there was almost an element of Guardiola in Arteta's thinking there. There was a little bit of overthinking. You shouldn't really have Willian up front if you've got Aubameyang, if you've got Nketiah, if you've got Lacazette. That smacks to me of trying to sort of overthink what you're doing rather than, which is understandable if you're playing Man City, and especially when you're playing a manager that you know so well. He will have desperately tried to second guess what City were going to do. He probably could have guessed all day and not come up with João Cancelo in central midfield. And that did seem to flummox Arsenal somewhat. And they will only lose narrowly this season. I think that's because they've got a sort of that new sort of strength at the back and that new sort of resolve. But you'd hope that against a Leicester side who have had a couple of poor results on the spin, that Arsenal could show that they are actually, the better side. Not just the better tactically or the better in terms of attitude as they have been. They've definitely improved their attitude. Now they need to show that actually they're a better footballing side than Leicester. And, it'd be great to see that the weekend.
Players, yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, they've just got better football players, and I think they want to show that, don't they? I mean, it sounds as basic as that, but I think sometimes that is the way it goes.
I think,
let's move on to our final topic of the week. I mean, we've got to talk about Jose. That last 8 minutes against West Ham was so un-Jose-like. And in recent seasons, when he's had a game like that where he's either shipped a bunch of goals or he's conceded a few last few minutes, you've seen him really sort of retreat into his shell and go more defensive, and he was so terrified of being humiliated again. I think we might see a similar thing happen here. They're away at Burnley. Burnley are struggling to score. I just think it's going to be a tight one. I think Spurs are going to play very conservatively. I think it's going to be a dull game, but I think it's going to be a positive result for Spurs.
I'm going to massively disagree with you here. I think this is slightly different. But I mean, his reaction to that, throwing away that 3-goal lead, was quite telling. I think, quite often before we've seen him throw players under a bus, which then what's coming. You know which version of Mourinho's coming. That he's going to then park that bus and he's going to make life difficult, not just for the players but for anyone watching. But Mourinho, he just sort of shrugged his shoulders, didn't he, and said, "Well, this stuff happens. It happened. Football happened." And I think he will have enough faith in that team and in what happened in the opening sort of hour of that game to think, look at that Burnley side. That Burnley side is poor. It was poor to start with, and now it's had quite a lot of injuries. They've bought no one in the summer. They're in for a long haul. Long struggle this season. I think he'll go and blow them away. I mean, you might be right. You're the man with the history of the excellent tips, as we saw last week. But
absolutely,
I think Tottenham will blow Burnley away. I think Kane, Son, addition of Bale. I think there's goals to be had there.
Well, I'm going to go here for a Spurs win and not to concede. So actually, what I'm going for here is both teams to score. No, so that's the bet you'd put down there. I just think Spurs are not going to be swashbuckling. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about this next week. See who was right. But I think it's going to be a tight victory. I think it might even be sort of 70 minutes plus a goal from Spurs. Well, let's see what happens. Speaking of bets, if you want to bet on all four of the tips I've given today, bet as a four-way accumulator, the odds for that are down below now. And if you miss out by just one of those results, i.e. you get 3 out of the 4 right, Paddy Power will give you a money back as a free bet.
I can't imagine you're even going to miss out on one, Mark. You were 4 out of 4 last week and we're expecting exactly
4 out of 4 last week,
exactly the same this week. And if it's 3, I'm going to be disappointed, to be honest.
I'm going to be disappointed, but I think I've got another good feeling about this one, so we'll wait and see. Sarah, put some money on it. I've got a good feeling for it. Right, that's all we've got time for this week. Thank you, Sarah, for joining me. Thank you guys at home for watching. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us. It's the editor at football365.com. This has been Big Weekend, brought to you by Paddy Power. Until next week, goodbye.